Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. We start our news bulletin from Pakistan, where army has killed 9 terrorists and arrested another during an intelligence-based operation in North Waziristan district. In a statement, the military's media wing said 2 soldiers were martyred and 5 others wounded in the operation. Inter-Services Public Relations said Lance Naik, Abdul Wahid and Sipoy Sarkumdad were martyred. It said the forces acted on credible information about the presence of the terrorists in Khaisura and Dusali areas. ISPR said weapons and ammunition were also recovered from the area by the troops. In Pakistan, 15 more people have lost their lives to COVID-19, increasing the tally to 269. The Health Ministry reported nearly 800 infection cases in the last 24 hours. The ministry said the total number of coronavirus cases has crossed 12,700. It said 81% of the infection cases are locally transmitted, with 19% have a history of foreign travel. The ministry said nearly 900 people have recovered so far, while 78 patients are in critical condition. It said 717 hospitals with facilities to tackle COVID-19 patients are operational across the country. Meanwhile, the global death toll from the new coronavirus has crossed 200,000 with over 2.9 million cases. In the US, nearly 2,500 people have died overnight, with the total death count rising to over 53,000. Spain has recorded the lowest number of single-day deaths from the novel coronavirus in over a month, with 288 fatalities. Elsewhere, Iran's daily death toll has also dropped to 60, with total reaching over 5,700. More in this report.
As the global death count reaches new record, economic strife is already pushing governments to ease restrictions. Many Americans have started flocking to beaches after one Florida county expanded access and a heat wave hit California. Governor of New York says enhancing test capacity is the key to making correct decisions regarding lifting restrictions.
As we continue to develop our testing capacity and the labs are coming up to scale, the collection sites are opening, the more testing we have, the more we will open eligibility. Hopefully, one day we get to the point where anybody who wants a test can walk in and get a test.
In the UK, the number of deaths has crossed 20,000 as the Prime Minister Boris Johnson prepares to return to work tomorrow after recovering. Meanwhile, authorities in Germany have arrested more than 100 demonstrators in Berlin for violating the restrictions. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said people will be allowed to exercise outside from 2nd May if the number of new infections continues to fall.
I
would like to announce that if the evolution of the pandemic continues in a positive direction as it is going so far, from May 2nd, it will be allowed to go out for individual physical activity and walks with the people we live with, always under the conditions set by the health authorities.
Elsewhere, India has recorded nearly 2,000 infection cases in the past 24 hours, the biggest spike in the daily toll. Meanwhile, China has reported no deaths from COVID-19 in the mainland for over a week.
Moving on to Afghanistan, where the tribal elders have said 7 government forces personnel are killed in a Taliban attack in the country's eastern Logar province. Local security officials have not yet commented on the attack. Talking to the media, tribal elders said the incident took place in the Barak district after the Taliban attacked a security forces checkpoint. They said 4 other security personnel were taken captive by the group. Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid didn't confirm or deny the attack, but he tweeted that a member of the Logar security forces joined the group voluntarily. Meanwhile, the Taliban say demanding a ceasefire in Afghanistan at a time when the opposition is not executing its obligations is illogical. In a statement, the group said it has executed its responsibilities regarding peace and end of hostilities in Afghanistan. The group said the Doha deal called for the release of 6,000 prisoners from both sides within 10 days after signing ceremony. It said according to the deal, a path to intra-Afghan negotiations must have been opened that will lay the groundwork for peace. This comes after US envoy Zalmay Khalilzad called on the Taliban to hold a humanitarian ceasefire and reduce violence in Ramadan. Khalilzad said both the sides must accelerate the release of the prisoners amid COVID-19. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the U.S. is deeply troubled over Iran's satellite launch. In a tweet, Pompeo alleged that the Iran secret space program advances technologies used in nuclear weapons delivery systems. The state secretary said Iran continues to lie that its space program is peaceful, civilian, and transparent. Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei has called on Iranians not to be afraid of the United States and other bullying powers. Addressing an event in Tehran, the supreme leader said fear of the U.S. will result in bitter outcomes for Iranians. He called for fearlessness and steadfastness in the face of enemies. Iran has denounced Israel's settlement activities and intention of annexing West Bank with U.S. support. In a statement, the foreign ministry said these activities are part of the U.S. President Donald Trump's disgraceful deal of the century. Spokesperson Abbas Mousavi said such moves violate international laws and threaten regional peace. He called on the UN and other international bodies to counter these moves as defined by their mandate. Mousavi said Israel's occupation forces are exploiting the lockdown spurred by the coronavirus outbreak. Last week, the United Nations and the European Union warned Israel not to annex parts of the occupied West Bank. Thousands of Israelis have demonstrated against the unity government deal that ensures Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in power. The protesters oppose Netanyahu remaining as Prime Minister while he is a criminal suspect. The demonstrators said the agreement will crush democracy as it gives Netanyahu influence over the appointment of judges and the legal officials. They said the power-sharing deal with the rival Benny Gantz is meant to rescue Netanyahu from his legal troubles. Gantz says the coronavirus crisis amid the year-long political deadlock forced him to go back on his promise of leading a clean government. Under the banner Save the Democracy, the protesters called on Gantz's Blue and White Party to not join the coalition.
Demonstrate for the democracy, for a rule that is not by someone who is accused, who has issues with the law. The person with issues with the law cannot rule a government and cannot appoint judges and cannot appoint ministers. There's a conflict of interest here that is built in the system.
Yemen separatist Southern Transitional Council has announced to establish self-ruled administration in the regions under their control. According to a peace deal, the STC is supposed to join a new national cabinet and place all forces under the control of the government. In a statement, the council said emergency rules apply in the city of Aden and all the southern governorates. Yemen's internationally recognized government has called the move withdrawal from the peace deal reached with the separatists in November last year. Foreign Minister Mohammed al-Hadrami said STC's announcement means a resumption of its armed insurgency. He warned separatists of the dangerous consequences. Libya's government of national accord says forces loyal to Khalifa Haftar are continuously attacking civilian settlements in southern Tripoli. This comes as the UN and Europe called for a humanitarian truce in the country in the holy month of Ramadan. In a social media post, the GNS spokesperson said 4 Nigerian workers were wounded in the attack in Tripoli. As part of the measures against COVID-19, a ceasefire took effect on 21st of March, but GNA has blamed Haftar's forces of continuous attacks on the capital. Libya has reported 2 deaths from the virus, 61 cases and 15 recoveries. The US and Russia have issued a rare joint statement commemorating a World War II link-up of their troops to defeat Nazi Germany. US President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin said the 1945 event is an example of how their countries can cooperate. The statement marked the anniversary of a meeting of Soviet soldiers and the American troops on a bridge over the Elbe River in Germany. It said the event heralded the defeat of Nazi regime. The statement read, "Spirit of Elbe shows how the US and Russia can put aside differences and cooperate in pursuit of a greater cause." Meanwhile, In an interview, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said before US elections, both the states need to create a mechanism to address concerns. In Germany, police wearing riot gear and face masks tussled with dozens in central Berlin protesting against the coronavirus lockdown on public life. The protesters argued with police officers that their constitutional rights had been infringed. Police said on Twitter they had arrested more than 100 people. They said about 180 officers were in place to uphold containment regulations. Officials said health authorities had not given permission for the gathering. They say Germany's coronavirus infection rate needs to fall further to a few hundred cases a day. Chancellor Angela Merkel said she was worried Germans were relaxing their social distancing efforts. Merkel is resisting pressure from some states to go ahead with easing of restrictions after a partial lockdown lift this week. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Health authorities in Muslim countries have reported new cases and related deaths from the novel coronavirus. Despite easing lockdown, Middle East is on high alert amid cases growing in number. This report has the details.
Saudi Arabia's King Salman has issued an order to partially lift the curfew in all regions of the kingdom. The state news agency says the king, however, kept a 24-hour curfew in Mecca. The kingdom has announced 9 deaths and almost 1,200 new COVID-19 cases in a day, whereas the death toll has reached 136. Of these cases, 120 were recorded in Medina, 364 in Mecca, 271 in Jeddah, 117 in Riyadh, and 43 in Dammam. Kuwait's health ministry said 278 new cases were confirmed, raising the total to 2,892, with the death toll at 19. Oman's case count reached over 1,900 after 115 more people tested positive. The health ministry said 10 deaths and 329 recoveries have been recorded in the country so far. In Lebanon, there were 704 cases, 24 deaths, and 104 recoveries from the illness. Turkey confirmed 106 more fatalities from the virus over the past 24 hours, bringing the death toll to over 2,700. Ankara's health ministry said the total number of cases surged to over 107,000 as nearly 2,900 more people tested positive. The holy month of Ramadan ushered in relaxed curfew rules in several cities across the region.
The G20 countries have launched an initiative to speed up access to health tools needed to fight coronavirus. Saudi Arabia's Finance Minister Mohammed Al-Jadaan said the group is still working to bridge an estimated $8 billion funding gap. In a statement, Al-Jadaan said G20 members will continue to cooperate on all fronts. The current chair of the G20 also said the world is still facing extraordinary uncertainty about the depth and the duration of this health crisis. Saudi Arabia earlier pledged $500 million to support global efforts to combat the coronavirus pandemic. U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation has launched a probe into the Missouri Islamic Center fire on the first day of Ramadan. The FBI is offering a $5,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the arsonists. Local authorities said a man was captured on a security camera engaging in suspicious activity shortly before the fire began. The blaze broke out at the Islamic Center of the Cape Girardeau during the early hours on Friday. Rescue officials said 12 to 15 people escaped injury as they were evacuated, but the damage to the building was extensive. Muslim Advocacy Group Council on the American Islamic Relations noted the suspicious timing of the blaze as Thursday night was the beginning of Ramadan. Several mosques in India's northern Uttar Pradesh state say police have ordered them to stop the call to prayer and use of loudspeakers. Anti-Muslim sentiments are at peak in the country as the Modi government and media continue to blame Muslims for spreading COVID-19. Mosque administrations in Ghazipur and Farrukhabad district said police gave them these orders on the first of Ramadan. They said police told them the orders came from the state authorities while threatening them with consequences for disobedience. Meanwhile, the BJP government has managed to deliver its COVID-19 welfare package to only 15% of the poor households. Government data shows out of 0.2 million tons of pulses, only 30,000 tons have been distributed so far. The Republic of South Africa is seeking almost $5 billion from the multilateral lenders to help it fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Africa's most advanced economy is talking to the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and the African Development Bank to source the funding. The money will be used to contribute to a $26 billion rescue package aimed at cushioning the impact of COVID-19 on businesses and poor households. The IMF says South Africa is entitled to apply for up to $4.2 billion in crisis response. Finance Minister Taito Mboweni said the government can negotiate for a facility between $55 and $60 million at the World Bank. South Africa has recorded nearly 4,400 cases and 86 deaths from coronavirus so far. Germany's Deutsche Bank has turned down calls for the sharing of US President Donald Trump's business dealings. Deutsche's law firm Gum sought legal and contractual boundaries with respect to the confidential information. The bank cited the legal distinction between congressional inquiries and informational requests made by individual members. Earlier, 4 Democratic senators wrote a letter to the CEO of Deutsche Bank requesting that Trump's financial archives be revealed. The bank remains under investigation by the Justice Department, while the U.S. Supreme Court oversees Trump's financial records case. France and the Netherlands will provide an unprecedented taxpayer-funded bailout of about 10 billion euros to salvage Air France-KLM. This comes as the Franco-Dutch airline group struggles to stay afloat because of the coronavirus outbreak. French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire said Air France-KLM will receive a 4 billion euros bank loan backed by the state and a 3 billion euros direct government loan. Le Maire said the support was not a blank check and the governments had set profitability conditions on the carrier. Other major airlines, including Germany's Lufthansa, are also negotiating government aid deals as they grapple with the air travel shutdown. Aviation giant Boeing has pulled out of a $4.2 billion deal to acquire the commercial plane division of its Brazilian rival Embraer. Boeing claimed Embraer was unable to meet the conditions required to close the transaction. But Embraer says Boeing backed out because of the financial problems due to the coronavirus crisis and the grounding of its 737 MAX. It accused Boeing of engaging in a systematic pattern of delay and repeated violations of the agreement. This came hours after a midnight deadline expired with no agreement on how to implement the pact. Embraer said it plans to sue for damages. Now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus Special.